The Alabama teenager was on a graduation trip to Aruba when she disappeared back in 2005. Her case ignited a media frenzy which failed to produce any real answers.
13 years after the disappearance of his daughter Natalee, Dave Holloway is still searching for answers.
You know, you always think about what could have been and what happened.
Natalee, in a sense, became America's child. And Aruba became the center of this international mystery. The enormous American media pressure is what I think drove the Aruban government to understand that this case was not the ordinary criminal case. Joran van der Sloot, the prime suspect, was such a sleaze. It was clear that he was not telling the truth.
Do I believe Joran van der Sloot is directly involved with the disappearance of Natalee Holloway? Absolutely.
Van der Sloot is currently serving time in a Peruvian prison for the 2010 murder of 21-year-old Stephanie Flores Ramirez, who was strangled in a Lima hotel room on the 5th anniversary of Natalee's disappearance.
I know what it's like to have a child go missing.
In 2010, Beth Holloway launched the Natalee Holloway Resource Center, a nonprofit focused on preventing other families from having to go through what she and her ex-husband have been dealing with for the past 13 years.
You know, as a parent, you want to know exactly what happened. And right now, we don't have Natalee, and we don't know any more than what we've known really from the first day.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Lauren.
I am Ken.
And this is Paradise After Dark.
Dark.
Vacation edition. If you are listening to this, it means you are a patron.
We love you and appreciate you listening and helping us out.
Yes, thank you so much to our patrons. You're the reason we do what we do here on Vacation Edition.
We are able to improve with your help. So tonight, what are we talking about, Lauren?
Natalee Holloway.
Natalee Holloway.
Now, in case you've lived under a rock for the last, 15 years. Has it been 15 years?
Yeah.
2005.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So you've probably heard about this case before, but here's our rendition of the Natalee Holloway case. 18-year-old Natalee Holloway disappeared under mysterious circumstances in Aruba, a Caribbean island, on May 30th, 2005. Aruba, like I said, is a Caribbean island that is one of 4 countries that form the Kingdom of the Netherlands, along with the Netherlands, Curaçao, and St. Martin. The citizens of these countries are all Dutch nationals. Aruba and other Dutch islands in the Caribbean are often called the Dutch Caribbean. Now, Natalee was a beautiful young woman, born October 21st, 1986 in Clinton, Mississippi, to Dave and Beth Holloway. Her parents divorced in 1993, and she and her younger brother Matthew were raised by their mother. In the year 2000, Beth married George, aka Jug, Twitty, a prominent Alabama businessman, and the family moved to Mountain Brook, Alabama. Natalee was obsessed with The Wizard of Oz, collecting memorabilia in her bedroom. She also loved Leonard Skinner.
Who doesn't?
She had a Sheltie named Macy. She loved the dog so much she would color its hair with highlighters and paint its toenails. She was a member of the National Honor Society, the School Dance Squad, and the American Field Service, which helps exchange students adapt to life in the U.S. She had just graduated from high school with honors in her hometown of Mountain Brook, Alabama, days before she vanished. She was about to enter the University of Alabama on a full scholarship. She hoped to become a doctor.
Now, the trip to Aruba was an unofficial graduation trip. There were 124 fellow graduates of Mountain Brook High School and 7 chaperones on the trip. According to Bob Plummer, a chaperone on the trip, who spoke to Greta Van Susteren of Fox News, the chaperones met with the students every day to make sure that everyone was fine. Jody Behrman, who organized the trip, stated the chaperones were not supposed to keep up with their every move. Most of the kids on the trip were at least 18 years old, so legal adults. The last time Plummer saw Natalee was the evening before she disappeared at dinner at a casino.
The following morning, the students were set to fly back to the U.S. They had arranged 2 buses to take them from the resort to the airport. As the students were boarding the bus, they realized that Natalee was not there. They quickly searched her room and the resort. They packed up her belongings, hoping that she was just off somewhere, running late, and would show up in time to get to the airport and make her flight home. But she never showed up. Natalee was last seen by her classmates around 1:30 a.m. on Monday, May 30th, as she was leaving the bar and nightclub Carlos and Charlie's. She was last seen leaving in a silver car, with 3 men. It was later determined that she left with 17-year-old Joran Vandersloot and brothers 21-year-old Deepak Kalpoe and 18-year-old Satish Kalpoe. Right away, Vandersloot was readily identified by a Holiday Inn staffer as a regular, known for going after young female tourists.
Let's see, originally, and for probably 5 or 6 years, or the whole time that this thing was happening and all that stuff was going down, was big in the news, I kept calling him Johan. And I don't know why I did, and it wasn't literally, I never really thought about it until we literally were doing all the research for this case. I realized it's actually pronounced Joran.
Joran.
I felt like such an idiot because I've been calling him Johan Vandersloot this whole time. I thought, man, I hope nobody was looking at me like, this guy don't even pay attention to the news. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Aruban authorities initiated searches for Holloway throughout the island and surrounding waters, but did not find her. Within hours of Natalee's disappearance, Beth and Jug Twitty, Natalee's mother and stepfather, got on a private plane and flew to Aruba. Within hours of arriving in Aruba, they were told the name and address of the last person to be seen with Natalee, Joran Vandersloot. Along with 2 Aruban policemen, they went to Vandersloot's home to confront him and search for their daughter. Vandersloot told them that he had never met Natalee, but when pressed, told them that he and his friends, Deepak and Satish Kalpoe, who were there when the Twitties arrived, had taken her to the California lighthouse area of Arashi Beach to see sharks, and then dropped Natalee off at the Holiday Inn around 2 a.m.
Okay, so she goes missing. It's already seen that she left with Joran and the other 2 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Got in the car,
Kalpoe brothers.
Yep, they left. And so they were so there's witnesses to seeing them leave, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And they claimed that they took her somewhere and then brought her back and dropped her off. Mm-hmm. But no one saw them arrive back, correct? Yet?
No. They went on to state that they dropped her off. When they dropped her off, she was stumbling, and a dark man in what appeared to be a security guard uniform helped her inside the hotel. The hotel employee, who has reviewed surveillance tapes from the morning of Holloway's disappearance, said they didn't show any sign of Natalee. Although there have actually been different accounts regarding the security cameras at the Holiday Inn, some claiming that they were not working. Police Commissioner Jan Vanderstraten, the initial head of the investigation, told Nancy Grace on her show on June 2, 2005, that Holloway did not have to go through the lobby to return to her room. So it's possible that she did return to her room and was not caught on surveillance cameras.
Because they weren't sure what was going on with the cameras at the time, correct?
Right, but even if the cameras were functioning, she could have gotten to her room without having to walk past them.
Got it. Well, I know that. Now, meanwhile, a whole massive search for Natalee's taking place. And Natalee's father, Dave Holloway, and her uncle, Paul Reynolds, flew down to Aruba to help look for her. And hundreds of volunteers from Aruba and the United States joined in the efforts. Now, during the first days of the search, the Aruban government gave thousands of civil servants the day off to participate in the search effort. So they're doing their due diligence. They're doing what they can to help. So it wasn't like they just like, hey, there's a kid missing, so what? Now, the beach was searched on June 14th, and Vandersloot's house was searched the next day, where investigators seized 2 vehicles, computers, and cameras. Now, Dutch Marines conducted an extensive search of the shoreline, and the Aruban banks raised $20,000 and provided other support to aid volunteer search teams. Natalee's family was provided with free housing, first at the Holiday Inn and then at the Wyndham Resort. And in mid-June, Texas EquuSearch. EquuSearch. See, I've heard it different ways. In mid-June, Texas EquuSearch, mounted search and recovery team came in to carry out a search of the entire island.
Texas EquuSearch mounted search and recovery team started in August of 2000 with the purpose of providing volunteer horse-mounted search and recovery for lost and missing persons. They currently have over 1,000 members and are growing rapidly. They're currently available to conduct searches nation and worldwide. They are a 501c nonprofit organization which is funded solely by donations. Now, just a little side note, Texas EquiSearch came in and did a major search for Kaylee Anthony when she was missing before they found her body. And that was one of the reasons why they believe that Kaylee's body wasn't where it was found at that time, because they can't, like, Texas EquiSearch has all the equipment, anything. I mean, they are the creme de la creme of search groups. So, and again, Texas EquiSearch came and searched for Natalee, and they did not find anything.
So, I mean, if anything, they were probably the most thorough of investigations or searches, rather.
Right.
So,
well, the guy who started Texas EquiSearch, Tim Miller, started it because his daughter went missing at some point. I don't have all the information right in front of me. I'm going straight off memory right now. But
let's add it to the file.
It's kind of like a John Walsh situation we just covered with Adam Walsh's case, where the father was, driven to do something about it. So he created this Texas EquiSearch.
On a side note, I really love those kind of stories where certain things happen, where if something bad happens, instead of just sitting on your ass and being upset and sad, which, it would be okay too, but these people make a difference.
Right.
What's the one that we sort of befriended on Facebook, or Instagram? Breonna Maitland's father?
Bruce Maitland, yeah.
Bruce Maitland, yeah.
Private Investigation for the Missing, another nonprofit that we have had some involvement with. And
support them wholeheartedly.
Oh, yes.
So,
yeah. And
that's just one of those things where they're taking a negative and turning it into a positive. So, again, I sidetracked you. I'm really bad about that, folks.
Around the same time, Beth Twitty, Natalee's mom, in an interview with Fox News' Greta Van Susteren, said she is confident that Vandersloot and the Kalpoe brothers know what happened to her daughter. I have absolutely no doubt at all that these three men know what happened to Natalee, she said. On July 4th, the Royal Netherlands Air Force deployed 3 F-16 aircraft equipped with infrared sensors to aid in the search, but the results came up empty. 6 weeks after she vanished, the family's offered reward for Natalee's safe return was $200,000, and the reward for information that could help lead to the truth was $100,000. By the end of July, the reward was up to $1 million if Natalee came home alive.
Wow.
On June 5th, Aruban police detained Antonius, a.k.a. Mickey John, and Abraham Jones, former security guards from the nearby Allegro Hotel. Jones's attorney, Chris Lehuez, said his client was accused of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and capital kidnapping, or kidnapping resulting in death, in connection with Natalee Holloway. Authorities have never officially disclosed the reason for the arrest of Jones and John, but, according to some accounts, statements made by Vandersloot and the Kalpoe brothers may have been a factor. The men were released a week later, and no charges were ever filed against them.
I remember seeing that, and I thought, when I saw it on the news, I'm like, I knew it was those guys. They busted them. And then, of course, like you said, a few days later, they're gone. They're being released, and it was all over the news. I'm like, what the hell? I thought they had this thing wrapped up.
Yeah.
So not so much. So Vandersloot and the Kalpoe brothers were on the police radar from the beginning. So it started out that way. I mean, they were witnessed leaving with her. So usually the last one to see them alive is the last one to see them alive. And numerous witnesses saw Natalee leave Carlos and Charlie's with these 3 guys. So they jumped in the car. It was a silver car and left. Aruban Attorney General Karen Jansen explained that they had been hoping that one of them would lead police to definitive evidence, so they weren't taken into custody right away. So they kind of let them just kind of hang out there in hopes that maybe one would go back to the scene of the crime or the body.
They were under surveillance from the beginning. Well, they were on the police radar from the beginning, and they didn't want to arrest them immediately because they were under surveillance. And they were hoping that one of them would lead them to something, some kind of evidence, maybe go back to the body or something.
Yeah.
But they felt pressured by Natalee's family to make an arrest, and it was such an immense pressure that they finally, on June 9th of 2005, Johan Vandersloot and the Kalpoe brothers were arrested on suspicion of kidnapping and murder of Natalee Holloway. One of the security guards who was arrested and then released told police that a Kalpoe brother had told him while they were both locked up that they hadn't taken Natalee to the hotel, but rather he and his brother had left her with Vandersloot at a beach near the hotel. On June 18th, another man was arrested, Steve Gregory Crows. Crows was brought in on information from one of the other 3 detainees. He was a party boat captain and suspected of being hired to bring Natalee's body out to the sea to dispose of her, but he was soon released. Police also questioned Paulus Vandersloot, Johan's father, and arrested him on June 22nd, but then released him on June 26th.
That's the one that blew me away, is arresting his father. I guess because they believed that he was covering something up.
Right. Well, he had been seen going to several different ATMs in the early morning hours after Natalee disappeared. And he was actually in the process of becoming a judge on the island. He was a very prominent attorney, and he was in the process of becoming a judge when Natalee Holloway disappeared.
And this kind of slowed that shit down, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
I thought so. Well, Satish Kalpoe admitted to lying to police at first, but then he changed his story to say he and Deepak dropped both Joran and Natalee off at the hotel, and that was the last they saw of them. He lied initially to help his friend, but said at a certain moment, "I can't help you anymore." His lawyer, David Cox, told the Associated Press. Finally, all 3 of them changed their story.
All 3 indicated that Vandersloot and Holloway were dropped off at the Marriott Hotel Beach near the fishermen's huts. At one point, Vandersloot stated that he had sex with Natalee on the beach and that she passed out and he left her there and walked home. Meanwhile, a gardener at the Aruba Racquet Club gave police a sworn statement that he saw all 3 men in a car near the club around 2:30 a.m. when the Kalpoes claimed they were already home. Then later, we found in an article by CBS News that Jamie Skeeter, a polygraph expert hired by the Dr. Phil show, spoke to Deepak Kalpoe on tape. In this taped interview, Deepak is heard making the following statements about Natalee and about that night. "To tell you quite frankly, dressed like a slut, talked like one too," he said. "Would go into a car with 3 strange guys and her mother claiming her to be the goody two-shoes. Enough with the BS already." When the investigator asked if she had sex with all 3 men, he responded, "She did. You'd be surprised how easy it was."
Fucking asshole.
Following hearings before a judge, the Kalpoe brothers were released on Monday, July 4th, but Vandersloot remained detained. The Kalpoe brothers were arrested again on August 26th, along with another new suspect, 21-year-old Freddie Armbatsis.
Yeah, tell me why was he arrested?
Armbatsis.
Is that how you say his name?
I think so. He was suspected of taking photographs of an underage girl and having inappropriate physical contact with the same girl. The incident allegedly occurred before the Holloway disappearance.
So it wasn't connected?
I don't think so. So I don't know why that's relevant, but it was mentioned in several different news articles and things that I researched. So
maybe they figure it was one of those like occurrences where it's possible that maybe this guy had something to do with it because he had done something before.
Yeah, maybe.
Best predictor of future performance is past performance. So the brothers and Vandersloot were all released September 3rd. So after this guy was arrested, and the Kalpoe brothers and Joran Vandersloot, they let them all go. And divers from the Aruba Search and Rescue Foundation searched again in late August after getting a tip that a radar machine had detected human bones about a mile off the coast, but they came up empty.
In 2006, Aruban authorities said witnesses had told them the teen was drinking heavily that night and had drugs in her possession, though no one said they saw her taking any drugs. "We feel strongly that she probably went into shock or something happened to her system with all that alcohol, maybe on top of that, other drugs, which either she took or they gave her, and that she just collapsed," Gerald Domig, deputy chief of the police for Aruba, told 48 Hour Mystery. Toward the end of 2007, Vandersloot and the Cowpole brothers were rearrested, but again, nothing came out of it, and they were released.
So how many times have they been arrested at this point? 3?
3.
Okay.
Vandersloot proceeded to freely travel the world. According to an article in E! News Online, he reportedly talked about the Holloway case all the time, seemingly pleased that it had made him famous, but his temper was easily triggered. Sitting for an interview with Dutch crime reporter Peter de Vries in January of 2008, he threw a glass of wine in de Vries' face when the reporter questioned why people should believe anything he said. But Peter de Vries had a plan. He began a sting operation.
I remember this. I think everybody does.
He hired Patrick van der Em, a Dutch Antillean entrepreneur and convicted drug dealer, to befriend Vandersloot and earn his trust. De Vries set him up with a brand new Range Rover equipped with 3 hidden cameras, audio recording devices, and a GPS-like tracking system. Van der Em spent 7 months with Vandersloot, smoking marijuana and using cocaine together. In February of 2008, Vandersloot confesses to van der Em about being present for Natalee's death on the beach. He described her as being heavily intoxicated and having seizures before dying in his arms, at which point he called a friend to help dispose of her body in the ocean. A taped confession aired on SBS6, a Dutch commercial TV channel. The broadcast was watched by 7 million viewers in the Netherlands and was the most popular non-sports program in Dutch television history. That same day, the Aruba prosecutor's office announced the reopening of the case.
As it should be.
Vandersloot then claimed he was lying to van der Em to impress him, who he believed to be a drug dealer. Since the video was not legally obtained, it cannot be taken into evidence and could not warrant an arrest.
Now, see, that would seem to me that would, cause a problem in the investigation. Because if you're a detective or an investigator and you're working on this case, something like that comes up, and it's almost like because it can't be used in court, it promotes your curiosity. It tells you, hey, this guy's definitely the killer. But there's nothing we can really do about it because now he's going to be on alert if we try to pull some shit like that or something like this comes up again where we try to send somebody in to legitimately get everything, then it you know what I mean? So it seems like it would hinder the investigation.
And I think it did, yeah. In November of that same year, Fox News aired an interview with Vandersloot in which he alleged that he sold Holloway into sexual slavery, receiving money both when Holloway was taken and later on to keep quiet. He alleged that his father paid off 2 police officers who learned that Holloway was taken to Venezuela. He later recanted those statements as well.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time getting his father in trouble for shit his father didn't do, I don't believe. Now, whether his father had anything to do with it or not, but...
We don't know. Because he died.
He spent a lot of time saying his dad, because he obviously probably relied on his father a lot for help.
Vandersloot went on to make more claims about what happened to Natalee and then recant each one.
On March 29th of 2010, Vandersloot contacted John Q. Kelly, Beth Twitty's legal representative, and offered to reveal the location of Natalee's body and the circumstances surrounding her death in exchange for $25,000. Now, Kelly notified the FBI, and they arranged to proceed with the transaction. On May 10th, Vandersloot had $15,000 wire transferred to his account in the Netherlands and received $10,000 in cash. The cash transaction was videotaped by undercover investigators in Aruba. Yet again, Vandersloot lied about what happened to Natalee.
Authorities stated that the information that he provided in return was false because the house in which he said Holloway's body was located had not yet been built at the time of her disappearance. On June 3rd, Vandersloot was charged in the U.S. District Court of Northern Alabama with extortion and wire fraud. U.S. Attorney Joyce White Vance obtained an arrest warrant and transmitted it to Interpol. On June 30th, Vandersloot was indicted on the charges. The indictment filed with the U.S. District Court seeks the forfeiture of $25,100 that had been paid to Vandersloot.
Okay, now, let's fast forward. Is it 5 years, I believe? Yeah, 5 years, almost to the date. 5 years to the date.
It was exactly the date.
Yeah. In Peru, now, Jorn Vandersloot, being an avid gambler, arrived in Peru on May 14, 2010, to attend the Latin American Poker Tour. And he was witnessed by several employees and video surveillance cameras doing some heavy gambling prior to his registration deadline for the LAPT tournament. Now, witnesses say that Joran wasn't very lucky in the casino and hadn't won any money. In fact, he'd lost quite a bit. And the deadline to pay the $2,700 entry fee for the June 2nd event at the casino was May 30th. It is known that he never did register for the tournament. And at 3 a.m. on May 30th, a woman by the name of Stephanie Flores was seen on camera entering the casino alone and walking up to a poker table where Joran was sitting. Now, Stephanie Tatiana Flores Ramirez, age 21, was a business student at the University of Lima. She was the daughter of Ricardo Flores, a prominent businessman who also ran for vice president in 2001. So this one was a pretty prominent woman. Her father, obviously,
Vice President of Peru?
Vice President of Peru, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking about a heavy hitter. So Stephanie was a little luckier than Joran was, as she had, according to a video, won $10,000 at a baccarat table and another $300 playing poker just a couple days earlier. At around 5 a.m. on May 30th, just 2 hours after meeting, Joran and Stephanie are seen on a video entering Hotel TAC together and heading into a room that was registered to Joran. And later, a little after 8 a.m., Joran is seen leaving the hotel alone, walking across the street to a grocery store, and then he returns with bread and 2 cups of coffee. Joran is seen on camera knocking on the door, and then he leaves going towards the front desk, where he tells the clerk that he locked his keys inside the room. Now, the clerk escorts him back and reopens the door and never looks in or steps inside. Now, it is speculated that this was a plan to have someone else discover the body of Stephanie Flores, but it obviously failed. Now, at approximately 9 a.m., he is seen leaving the hotel alone with just his bags, and there's absolutely no sign of Flores. Now, the investigation later reveals that Joran Vandersloot paid for a cab to take him to the border of Chile and Peru, where he is known to have illegally crossed the border through Chacaluta. Or Chacaluta? Chacaluta. I don't know how to say that. Chacaluta. Ricardo Flores, Stephanie's father, found her car parked nearly 50 blocks from the casino. Now, her jewelry, her money, her identification, all of her credit cards were missing, including the $1,000 that her father had given to her to purchase a laptop, and over $10,000 that we spoke about that she had won earlier in the casino. Flores reportedly kept this money in her car, but a police search found no money in it or on her person. Now, once she was reported missing, the police located the hotel footage and got Joran's national ID number. And on June 2nd, the body of Stephanie Flores was found in his hotel room where she had been bludgeoned to death. Now, according to General Cesar Guardia of the Peruvian police, Stephanie Flores was found lying face down on the floor of the suspect's hotel room. She was fully clothed with no signs of having been sexually abused. But an autopsy later revealed that she was not intoxicated at the time of her murder, and she had suffered blunt force trauma to her head, which caused a brain hemorrhage and cranial fracture and a broken neck. She had also suffered significant injuries to her face, showed signs of asphyxiation, and this is all according to all the court documents. Now, Flores did test positive for the presence of amphetamines, but is not known if she willingly took them. And Peruvian officials then named Vandersloot as the lone suspect for the homicide investigation. Interpol immediately issued an international arrest warrant for Vandersloot, who had slipped away and was off to Chile.
Joran Vandersloot was arrested on June 3rd while traveling in a taxi on Highway 68 near the capital, Santiago. He had a laptop, some foreign currency, and bloody clothes on him. Also, his SIM chip for his phone was missing, making it impossible to locate him. He originally told authorities that there had been armed robbers in the hotel room that killed Flores when he refused to be quiet and claimed that he was on his way to turn himself in. On June 5th, Vandersloot was returned to Lima, where he was interrogated by police for the murder of Flores. He was detained and placed on suicide watch by guards after it was reported that he was deliberately hitting his head against the wall. Information from the medical examiner's office indicates Stephanie Flores was lying on her back, fully clothed and not covered. There was blood coming from the left side of her head, from her ear and her nose. There was blunt force trauma to the back of her head and her lower neck. The blunt force trauma caused hemorrhaging in the brain, which is the cause of the death. The stains on Vandersloot's clothes match Flores' blood type, and blood was also found on the floor, the hallway, and the mattress in the hotel room. There was DNA test ordered for the clothes and the skin that was found under Flores' fingernails.
Yes, and on CBSNews.com, /pictures, /Vandersloot hotel room crime scene, you can see all 22 photos of the hotel that the police had. So you can go there and look at all the crime scene photos that they took of Flores.
Do they actually have photos of her?
Oh, yeah. They have photos of her, not her face, but like her feet, her arms, certain parts of her body, the shoes, the blood on the shoes, the blood on the clothes, things like that are all listed in there. They got things like the Coke bottle that was there, just certain things that...
Crime scene photos.
Exactly, yeah. Crime scene photos. After several hours of interrogation on June 7th, 2010, Vandersloot reportedly confessed to killing Flores. He initially claimed that he was innocent, and according to an expert on Peruvian law, the confession was just a defense strategy of trying to get the charges reduced to manslaughter, which is punishable by only 6 to 20 years, while a conviction for murder could result in up to 35 years of imprisonment. Now, the prosecution was seeking the full sentence of 30 years, but Peru does not issue life sentences in cases of murder and has abolished capital punishment. However, the Peruvian president, Alan Garcia Perez, used this case to call for the reinstatement of the death penalty for murder trials. Now, attorney Julio Rodriguez told RPP Radio that the Peru's penal code does consider life imprisonment for aggravated robbery when it ends in the death due to the use of violence. La Repubblica reports that the homicide investigators are considering robbery as the prime motive for the murder. Now, Joran Vandersloot did confess to killing Flores. In his confession, he stated that at 8:10, he went to purchase coffee at a convenience store nearby, and when he came back to the hotel room, he found Stephanie on his computer looking up information about him. He said that he then became angry because she had just used his laptop without his permission and was reading details of the case involving Natalee Holloway. They began to argue, and he struck her to retrieve his computer. Joran Vandersloot is quoted as stating just like this: "I didn't mean to. She intruded into my private life. She had no right. I approached her. She was scared. We quarreled, and she tried to run away. I grabbed her by the neck and hit her." Again, this confession, which is most likely the facts about Flores' awful death, was believed to be an attempt to get a reduced sentence. He also told investigators that he was stoned at the time, which later turned out to be another attempt to buck the system. Apparently, Peru is more lenient on felonies when there are drugs involved. Toxicology showed that he hadn't done any drugs at all.
When the transcripts for the confessions were released, there were claims from him and his mother that his confession had been coerced. Joran said that the confession documents he was signing were all in Spanish and that he was scared, so he was just signing everything. One of Joran's attorneys, Maximo Alonso Altez Navarro, who resigned from the case due to harassment, threats, and non-payment for his services, did file a motion to have the confession thrown out. But on June 25th, Superior Court Judge Wilder Casacue Alvizuri rejected the motion, stating that Vandersloot was represented initially by a state-appointed lawyer and was even provided a translator by the Dutch embassy. On June 11th, Judge Juan Buendia charged Joran with first-degree murder and robbery. It was determined that he acted with ferocity and great cruelty, and with that he was denied any type of bond and would be held in Miguel Castro prison for the duration of the trial. Joran said he feared for his safety there and would even divulge the location of Natalee Holloway's body in exchange for being sent to an Aruban prison. He claimed the living conditions were poor, there were rats in his cell, and also that his cellmate was a Colombian murderer.
Aww. That poor guy. There was rats in his cell. And he was next to another murderer? Oh, we can't have that. Can't put murderers together. Dick. Now, 18 months later, on January 11th, 2012, Vandersloot pleaded guilty to what they quote as qualified murder and robbery of Stephanie Flores. He was convicted and sentenced to 28 years imprisonment for the murder and was fined $75,000, which he must pay to Stephanie's family. After the verdict, Vandersloot was escorted to the maximum security prison, Piedras Gordas, located north of Lima. But in August of 2014, Vandersloot was transferred to Chalapalca prison, a mountainous area south of Peru where times are a little more harsh due to the location's altitude. And soon after his transfer, a Dutch online news service claimed that Vandersloot was stabbed and critically injured by fellow prisoners in Peru. These allegations were written off as false, but his wife, yes, like Ted Bundy, someone decided it would be a good idea to fall in love with this killer and said that photos have been published showing Vandersloot as suffering from multiple stab wounds from 2 separate attacks. Again, boo-hoo, poor guy. Now, the Peruvian Forensic Psychology Department determined that Vandersloot is antisocial, psychotic, cold-blooded, and calculating, which is pretty much what everybody else knows. Now, also, it is to be noted that he is also the suspect of 2 girls who went missing from a casino in Bogota, Colombia. And would this make him sort of an international serial killer? If he's going from country to country?
Yeah.
If he's killed Natalee Holloway, which we're pretty sure he did. Mm-hmm. Now, we know that he's confessed of killing Stephanie Flores. If there's 2 other women
in Colombia, yeah,
that'd make him a serial killer. So I wonder if there's anybody else that's missing.
In November of 2010, tourists found a jawbone on an Aruban beach near the Phoenix Hotel. This is where Vandersloot supposedly took Natalee. Preliminary examination by a forensic expert determined that the bone was from a young woman, but it was later determined by dental records that it did not belong to Natalee. In June 2011, 6 years after Natalee's disappearance, Dave Holloway filed a petition with the Alabama courts to have his daughter declared legally dead. Beth Twitty, Natalee's mother, opposed this petition. A hearing was held on September 23, 2011, at which time probate judge Alan King ruled that Dave Holloway had met the requirements for the legal presumption of death. On January 12, 2012, a second hearing was held, after which Judge King signed the order declaring Natalee Holloway to be dead.
Just a quick question. Why would... What's his urgency to have her declared dead? Any idea?
Maybe it could be closure. Maybe life insurance.
Although it was never described, I didn't find anything about life insurance.
Neither
looking
did
at
I.
this. So I'm assuming you're right.
It's probably
closure.
Closure.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume with that.
Have a funeral, maybe.
Yeah.
In 2016, Dave Holloway hired a private investigator, T.J. Ward, to go over the investigation. This led to an informant, Gabriel Madrigal, who claimed to have been a roommate of one of Vandersloot's closest friends, American John Ludwig, in 2005. Gabriel claimed that Ludwig was told what became of Natalee and helped dispose of the body. According to Gabriel's account, in the first episode of The Disappearance of Natalee Holloway on the Oxygen Network, Ludwig allegedly helped Johan Vandersloot hide Natalee. Johan offered to give him $1,500 to dig up the body in Aruba's national forest and dispose of the remains. On the show, Ludwig claimed to have helped Vandersloot dig up, smash, and cremate Holloway's bones in 2010. During the Oxygen series, Dave Holloway and T.J. Ward went to Aruba for 18 months as part of an undercover investigation with Gabriel. Holloway said in August of that year the informant took him to the place where the skeletal remains were found. Dr. Jason Koloski, a forensic scientist leading the testing of the bone fragments, said, out of 4 individual bone samples, only 1 was found to be human. The mitochondrial DNA sample was not a match to Beth Twitty, Natalee's mother, so it was ruled out that the bone belonged to Natalee Holloway. On March 9, 2014, the Peruvian government announced that Vandersloot would face extradition to the United States in the year 2038 to face the charges of extortion and wire fraud after completion of his 28-year sentence in Peru for the murder of Stephanie Tatiana Flores Ramirez. In another strange twist of fate, in March of 2018, John Ludwig was stabbed to death by a woman he tried to kidnap in Northport, Florida. He attacked her with a knife, which she was able to get away from him and stab him with.
Karma?
Karma. To this day, Natalee's disappearance and presumed murder remains one of the most infamous unsolved cases our country has seen in the last 20 years.
I know it's unsolved on the books, but I think we have a pretty good idea of who did this.
I agree.
I mean, he's a cold, calculated asshole. I like the fact that because of that whole wire fraud thing where he sort of extorted money from Natalie's mother, you know, I'm going to give you information on that. I mean, think of this, how sad that would be to me. And I could just picture me and you if it was our child that was missing and any answer is available. It's going to cost money. Who cares about money at this point, right? So he says, look, give me $25,000 and I will tell you where she's at. Well, of course you're going to do it. I mean, shit, whatever I got to do to find this information, I want to find my daughter.
Right.
Dead or alive, there's something about finding your child that just has to be done. And that part there just, I mean, not only do I believe he killed Natalee Holloway, I believe that he continued to beat on the mother emotionally.
Oh, yes.
And the family. Mm-hmm. To better himself financially. That just tells you how literally like the forensic...
How sick and twisted he is.
Exactly. Cold, calculating. I mean, he knew what he was doing.
He's a psychopath through and through.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he got away with it, and he feels like, oh, I got away with it. Now, one thing to note is when he was on trial in Peru, a couple things that he did. His attorney tried all these different things, and he had several different attorneys. One of the biggest problems is there was no money. He didn't have any money because he'd already spent it. So he kept telling, oh, my mom's going to pay you. My mom's going to pay you. Well, mom couldn't pay shit because, you know, it was a bad situation. So the attorney said that he even tried when the confession that was out, he lied. He tried to confess, but then he said, oh, wait, that's not my signature on the confession. Then he tried to say, well, I didn't do that. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. He tried to get out of the whole damn thing, the whole trial. He tried to sort of talk his way out of it. He was smiling and grinning like it was no big deal, winking at the attorney like, I got this. Because he had gone through the shit with the Natalee Holloway case and been arrested numerous times and gotten off. Mm-hmm. So he thought for sure that he was going to get off of it this time. But he didn't realize that he wasn't somewhere where his father was a judge. He wasn't somewhere where the Dutch nationality meant something. Mm-hmm. He was in fucking Peru.
Yeah.
So you're going to get buried here, son. And there's going to be rats in your cell. And we apologize, but our conditions in prison aren't great. So what about you? I mean, how do you feel about this case?
Well, obviously, I feel like Joran van der Sloot.
See, you did it too.
Joran van der Sloot. I don't know that he necessarily murdered her. I think maybe he slipped her a roofie or put something in her drink that made her sick. There was claims that she was convulsing, having seizures, foaming at the mouth on the beach, and then died. And I think if she was on that island, they would have found her. So I think that they must have taken her out to sea.
I agree with that. Now, so you're saying you feel that she maybe it was slipped a Mickey and then, you know, had an overdose?
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, do you feel like
something along those lines?
So
possibly.
You don't think that he got maybe he tried to have sex with her and she didn't want to,
well,
or
that's
maybe he raped her
a possibility.
And was afraid she was going to turn him in. That's my feeling. I feel like he raped her and was afraid that, oh shit, I've raped this girl. She's gonna turn me in. My father's a judge. It's not going to be good. I got to do something about this. So he just turned to murder. That's my personal feeling, but
it could be.
I definitely see what you're saying.
Unfortunately, I don't think that we'll ever know.
No.
I really don't. And I think that if her body was taken out to sea, that we're not going to find it. So, yeah, I just feel like this is one of those cases that's really...
Well, I hope in 2038 when he's released from Peru and he's put on that plane to be brought to Alabama to be indicted and charged with the fraud, that maybe, just maybe by then, he will have, I don't want to say, he'll have a change of fate where he wants to clear his conscience and say something. So I'm hoping in 2038, that's going to be our number, that he's going to come out and say, look, here's a deal. Give me, just let me get the fuck out of prison. I'm going to tell you this. This is what you got to do. So I'm hoping that that's what he does. So he'll have enough time. Maybe he'll admit to what he did and where he put her or what the actual facts are. and put some closure.
But can
to
you
this.
believe anything he says?
Well, I mean, obviously you would have to do your due diligence and find the stuff first, make sure that the facts that he's telling you are the true, and then say, okay, well, we found her body or whatever. Now we're going to be a little more lenient with you because you've already spent this many years in prison. It's going to be, what, 28 years? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 28 years in prison. So instead of doing the rest of your life in prison, now you're just going to spend 10 years in prison or whatever it may be. So I'm hoping. But anyway, this is one of those cases. I mean, this was a huge, huge case.
Yeah.
I remember seeing, and it was on Nancy Grace, every freaking time you turn on the news, Natalee Holloway, Natalee Holloway, Natalee Holloway. I didn't care what news channel you put on, nightly news, there was always some update on this. And that went on for almost, like 2 or 3 months, where there were arrest and then release. Arrest, release. This guy was arrested. And I remember seeing the news thing where the guy did the undercover investigation and sort of, got him. They were doing drugs together and hanging out. I remember them driving in the car. He's like, oh, yeah, I was there. It was almost like everything he was saying was so factual. Yeah. But yet then he turned around and gave it a whole, oh, no, I was just saying that to be cool speech. And that is a lot like there was a case like that where the guy said that he was just trying to be cool when they admitted to it. The one where the Indian kid killed his parents. Remember True East?
Yes, I don't remember the name.
Yeah, I don't either. But the True East case, I remember hearing that case numerous times. I think everybody called it True East. But that case there where he took off and went to Canada and they sat down and they did this undercover sting operation. And again, he admitted all this stuff. But then they're like, oh, no, I was just saying it to be cool. Yeah. So that's kind of the same scenario. But it just, I hate those scenarios because it seems like it's so factual. But maybe it's just people wanting to have some closure, to have some definitive answer to what's going on or what happened. So yeah.
All right.
So I guess that concludes our vacation edition for Natalee Holloway.
Thanks for listening.
And
we'll see you next week for Off Topic and next month for another edition of Vacation Edition along with our main show, The Big Show.
The Big Show. I like The Big Show.
Thank you all for listening. Thank you to our patrons for your support.
We really appreciate it.
And thanks for listening
to Paradise After Dark.
Dark, dark, dark.